Hello and welcome to CNews interview. You have boys going back of superbikes and supercars, but have you ever met a person who is so fond of Indian railways, who is so much interested towards Indian railways that it has taken him so long in researching every hook and nook of Indian railways? So we have Chitresh Shrivastva, who is pursuing his first year international relations from Christ University. Chitresh also happens to be an ex-Christed who had pursued his UG in communication, English, and psychology. So, Chitresh, where and how did it all start?
So it dates back to my childhood days when I used to be fond of train toys and train photos. So that every time I would take a train toy and play with it or see a train picture, I would be very fascinated looking at that huge chunk of coaches and locomotives. So my parents later realized that I hold a lot of fascination towards railways. But then as I grew up, I started going more in depth into it, although it was again at a very limited scale, but yet I then further pursued a research in railways because I wanted to know what exactly goes into operating the railway system and how exactly it works.
So, Chitresh, it's been so long journey, from the point where your interest started on Indian railways and now you are pursuing international relations. So there was a long journey.
Yeah.
So, what was that all that you did towards Indian railways during that tenure till you reached here?
So during this entire period when I was pursuing my UG and then I came to PG and there was a shift in the branch, that did not deter me from pursuing my passion. Even when I was in UG, I still pursued railways as a passion. So when I came to Christ, I remember the first lecture I gave to a bunch of students in a globalization certificate course about railways and technology, of how the technology from outside has helped Indian railways. And that's how the journey began. I was being invited to many more lectures. I have alone given 3 lectures for certificate course, and I have also given a lecture to a bunch of MA International Studies students, the course of which I am a part today. So that served 2 purposes. One is making them aware about the Indian railway history and also getting to know about the course. So this is how it has been spreading, and then finally in 2016 in July I gave a lecture to a group of 4,000 students, UG students, on Indian railways, which was a part of the syllabus, English syllabus. So this is how it has been spreading, and also I have been using my blog at regular intervals to make people more and more aware, not just the operational part of it but also from the point of view of the policies of Indian railways.
So, if you look at the Indian railways, not just the geographical area, but also the other operational areas, if you see in the Indian railways, it's
Exactly.
actually very vast.
Very much.
What we know was just a little bit.
Yes.
So, how do you, restrict yourself in researching? Like, do you research on certain parts of Indian railways or the entire thing that goes into Indian railways? So, where does your research actually falls in? Like,
okay, so basically when I am doing a research, we look at what type of field are we looking forward to. For example, rail fan is a very narrow term to be described as. A more academic term is a pharyngonologist. So we actually pursue the study of trains. So there are difference in the people and the field they pursue. Like for example, if you are an engineering student, you will look towards the engineering aspect. If you are a humanities student, you will look towards the non-technical, as in only the operational and the historical aspect or the economical aspect. So because I am not from the engineering background and I do not understand the terms of the machines used in locomotives, so I went on for operational, historical and economical fields of Indian railways. So if I am interested, I go on the field and I look how the machine actually operates, but I do not do an in-depth research into it. Otherwise, I use secondary sources. I also look at certain documentaries which help me understand better the history, the economy, economic policies and the operational feasibility and the way the operation takes place on this 1,15,000 kilometers of network.
so the accumulation of information is actually a very tough thing when you consider this geographical and demographical areas.
Yes.
So how do you actually manage to get information? So what are the sources of information that you
So
get?
basically it's one basic thing that there are primary and secondary sources. But when we look at railways, it's also a point of national security. From the point of national security, we face a lot of challenges when we have to gather primary data. It involves a lengthy procedure which we would not want to spend time on, because we have to continuously keep on researching. So we go for secondary sources, we try to understand the hooks and crooks of what exactly the matter is, and then when we go out, when we go for a trip, we don't go for a dedicated field trip, we go for a trip like that, then we apply whatever we have read of, whatever we have been hearing of, and that's how we get to know, okay, this is how the railway works, this is what I have been reading so far, and this is how exactly it's in practicality.
So, I mean, talking about your sources, so
Yeah.
have you done expert interviews and all regarding your Indian Railways? Internet and information is all the part. So,
Yeah.
to get a factual information about Indian Railways and all,
Yeah.
so people actually need expert interviews. Some people who
Yes.
are very experienced in those fields.
Exactly.
So, have you done any kind of interviews?
So far, I have not approached any expert as such on Indian Railways. Of course, some of my family members are in the railways. My great grandfather was in the railways,
Okay.
but he is no more. He passed away. So otherwise, of course, I have some of my uncles who know people. So in case I am able to get them, then I do take interview. But if specifically you are talking about it, I have so far not met any such expert.
So your choice towards international relations. So was there any relation between the Indian Railways and international relations? You really thought, and before only, that international relations would be something that would definitely help your interest towards the railways.
So if you look at it, today international studies is the essential part of any country's economy, because we are all interdependent upon each other. So when you look at railways, for instance, railway has been a subject of lot of changes. Why? Because there are many countries who have come, helped us out, technology transfers have taken place, and that's how we got in new technologies. So it's not that we did not do anything on our own, but we also took expertise from other countries as well, in order to understand how the relations help in the development of railways, and how railways helps in forming a relationship with the new countries, is why I chose international studies, because it offers you a scope to do a detailed research on how the relations between countries are also shaped by railways as a means.
Yeah. So how do you actually get updated with these developments instantly? Because there are a lot of developments that happen because of the political interventions and
Yes.
populist interventions. So
Yes.
developments happen every day in Indian Railways. You
Yes.
see in the news and all, digitalization, e-ticketing, passengers too.
Yes.
So how do you get updated with this, with all your academical schedules and
Exactly.
everything?
So the thing is, academic will be there. Of course, it's undeniable. It's an important part. But whenever I get time, when I'm in the bus, when I'm surfing the net, I would just log on to a Facebook page which talks about the developments of Indian Railways, rather than going to any other page which might not be relevant to my field of interest. And that's how I get to know. Especially, I follow Suresh Prabhu's Facebook page, and that's how I get to know what are the developments taking place.
So apart from this, we have also heard that you run a blog,
Yeah.
and you write poems on Indian Railways and all. So what is it all about? Just how does it go with Indian Railways interest?
So a poem is a completely different field. I never mix railways and poems, because they can never go hand in hand. You cannot get the feeling of a poet when you are in the railways. Blog, of course, blog helps you to voice out your opinions. It's more of a perspective that I speak about, rather than putting the newspaper facts and then telling, yes, this is what I want. No, I read the paper, and that's how I make my opinions upon policies, and then I put it on the blog. So for example, recently a lot of train accidents have been happening. So there are many solutions that exist, but we do not bring it in the public domain, or we do not bring it in the political domain. But I feel that as a responsible citizen and as a rail fan, to say, my duty is not just collecting pictures and researching, but I should also bring it into implementation. Of course, I might not be heard, not a problem, but yet voicing out my opinions through my blog is one way through which I suggest my reforms that should take place in the railways.
So how do you actually get respected with, because you're not providing them a factual information, you're not
Yeah.
providing the audience factual information, but then it's
Exactly.
all opinionated.
Yes.
So where does that respect that you get for your opinion stand out?
So the thing is, facts anybody can get. I can get a bunch of papers and I can talk a lot of facts about it. But what is different? Am I suggesting something in it? No, it doesn't. But when I read the facts and I say, look, here is a problem and this is something I feel should happen in the railways and this is how the reform can take place, people feel that okay, he is going beyond the facts, he is going beyond the government policies, he is going beyond the white papers, what you call in the parliament, and he is trying to voice out his opinions. So the respect that I get is not for the opinions that, for the knowledge I have gained over the years, but because I have implemented it in my daily life and I have tried to frame my own policies, although it might be imaginative for the short period of time, but at some point of time they have come into existence. For example, I was talking about how to prioritize freight services so that there is a timetable service to improve the credibility of freight market, and it actually turned into a reality when the first timetable freight service was launched from Bangalore, from Whitefield to Okha. So that's how I voice it out, but I also hope that yes, it will turn into a reality someday.
Okay. You've come so long and all, so
Yeah.
there might be a lot of challenges that you might have faced in this journey
Yes.
towards the interest that you have, settled upon
Yes.
Indian Railways. So what are the challenges that you faced during this journey?
First is the perception of people, as you were talking about in the initial interview, in the introduction of the interview. Secondly is how many people actually support it. Now let me talk with my first challenge. So the thing is, people used to hear, they would say, I have heard boys loving girls, boys loving bikes, boys loving cars, somebody is in love with trains. So initially it used to be a little bad I used to feel bad because I am very bad at understanding jokes or sarcasm. So but I understood that this is inspiration for me to pursue it further, and that's how I carried on with it. And I jokingly say that I don't mind if I have to leave the university for the purpose of railways, because I am going towards my goal and it will help me. But the second challenge that I had was to convince people that railways is as important a subject as anything else. I don't say that others are not important, but railways also is as important. Why do you think America has developed? Why the American railways has developed? Because they had a positive perspective. In India, we only limit ourselves to the stinky toilets and the bad food, but we don't look towards, okay, what are the other policies, significant policies that the railway is implementing from day to day, which is helping in its progress. So through my knowledge and through the lectures, I have been successful enough in making people go beyond the toilets and the food and have a larger picture of the railways. Because if you have a smaller picture, then you will have a narrow mindset, but you need to have the larger picture, and it has helped, and I have overcome those challenges over these years through my knowledge and through my presentations on it.
So, summing it up, so where exactly you see Indian Railways today when you compare it with the policies and the other countries' railway systems also? Where do you see this Indian railway system?
So just to brief it, I will divide it into policy and countries. So I don't think it's the right time for us to compare with other countries, because other countries are way ahead of us. Not taking into consideration our neighboring countries, but if we look at Europe, if we look at China, neighboring countries means Bangladesh and Pakistan, they cannot be compared in my view. So we still have a long way to go. We need to come out of the populist policies. We need to come out of unviable projects. For example, I find Suresh Prabhu's bullet trains now ridiculous, because in the existing infrastructure where you are having so many accidents and you are just thinking about bullet trains, I think it's time you channelize your investments to a better infrastructure and then think about bullet trains. So we still have a long way to go. Of course, the comparison to countries should be looked upon as a learning and not as something like, yes, I am ahead or I am behind of it.
That is Chitresh Shrivastva for us, his interest towards Indian Railways. So Chitresh concludes it as, Indian Railways, despite having populist and political intervention, it's still getting better. And when you compare it with the countries, it should always be a learning process for our system. So thank you, Chitresh, for
Thank
being
you
with
so
us
much.
and sharing, great knowledge towards Indian Railways.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNews interview. This is Pranay Kumar signing off.